Hey, what's up guys? Matt here coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. So as soon as I saw the 23 model year CVO Street Glide and Road Glide and saw the new body style, I knew that it was time for me to make a change. I knew it was time to sell the 2018 Street Glide Special that I've had for about 5 years now. Whenever Harley-Davidson makes a big change in their touring family, that's usually the time in which I make a change. One, because I like to stay up to date on all the new stuff and be able to experience the new bikes from firsthand just so I can stay sharp on my knowledge, and two, just because I want a new bike and I want something to get excited about. So the question remained, am I going to go Road Glide or Street Glide? And I think initially when I saw both the bikes, I was like, okay, Street Glide, no question. I love the Street Glide. I'm going to stay true to my roots. I've been riding Street Glides now for a little over a decade, and at first glance I actually preferred the Street Glide fairing to the Road Glide. But over the last 7 or 8 months, as I've ridden both of these bikes and really thought about all the different things that I need in a motorcycle, my mind has kind of changed, and now I'm shifting over to the Road Glide. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly the criteria that I looked at and the factors that influenced my decision to, for the first time in a while, step away from the Street Glide and move into a Road Glide fairing touring bike. And I know there's going to be a lot of those guys out there that say, yep, Matt, everybody comes to the Road Glide eventually, and I told you so. I knew you'd eventually go Road Glide. I can just hear a lot of my friends now saying it. But at the end of the day, my pride is less important than what the bike is going to give me, and certain things that the Road Glide can offer that the Street Glide can't. And although it was close, the Road Glide did end up coming out on top when everything was considered. So I think one of the biggest and most commonly debated subjects in the Harley-Davidson world is which is better, the Batwing fairing or the Sharknose fairing. And I've personally had this conversation thousands of times. I've talked about it with thousands of customers of mine. Everybody wants to know which one is better, the Batwing or the Sharknose fairing. Basically, the Street Glide or the Road Glide. And a lot of what comes into play on this is personal preference. A lot of it is style. I've talked about this before, which of these you prefer the style of. But although the bike, other than the fairing, is identical, there are a lot of little things that I think separate the Road Glide from the Street Glide. And so I'm going to jump into the big ones that I looked at when we had a fresh start on these new 24 model year Road Glide and Street Glides. And so I'm going to jump into those real quick and tell you kind of how I came to my decision. So I think the first thing is first impressions, right? Just like when you're trying to find a girlfriend, the first thing that matters is the looks. When you look at the two bikes next to each other, which of the two fairings speaks to you the most? Which are you most attracted to? And for me, it was the Street Glide. So 1 point for the Street Glide over the Road Glide. I've always just liked the smaller footprint, smaller form factor of the Batwing fairing. I actually like a fork mounted fairing as well. I just like the feeling of the fairing swiveling. I like that the fairing is closer to me and that the infotainment system is closer to me as well. And maybe it's just a familiarity thing where I just am used to the Street Glide and so I prefer it. I really like the look of the Road Glide as well, but in the cockpit it just feels a little bit foreign to me. And although I've ridden them a bunch, I'm definitely used to it at this point. I just feel like there's a larger mass up on the front of the bike with the Road Glide, and so I slightly prefer the Street Glide appearance over the Road Glide. Number 2, I looked at media. So they did change the media storage for both the Street Glide and the Road Glide this year. So the Street Glide, they finally improved it. Before, you had this little boombox door on the right hand side of the infotainment system that couldn't even fit a phone, and so that was kind of just a big fail from the beginning. Now you've got this nice large drawer that comes out that fits your phone, and what's cool too is when the drawer comes out, you can even view your phone from inside the drawer, which I like. The Road Glide has these two big containers on either side of the fairing, on the right and the left, and the USB cord is on the right hand side. It's plenty big to fit a phone, which is nothing new because the older generation could fit a phone as well, but you got to dig a little bit more to get your phone. You can't view your phone when it's in the storage container, and so for that reason, for media use and like phone storage and connectivity, I'm going to chalk up another one for the Street Glide. And number 3, guys, there's just something that's unique to me that just instinctually makes me have kind of a little bit of a pride factor, where for so long I've just talked about how I'm a Street Glide guy for life. I'm never going to change from the Street Glide. Also, there's a factor too that now that the Road Glide just completely outsells the Street Glide, I just kind of like to be that guy that has a bike that's different from everybody else. And so that's just one more reason why when these two bikes came out, I was like, okay, Street Glide for sure. I still think most people are going to prefer the Road Glide, so I'm going to go Street Glide, have a bike that's different from the crowd. And so my decision was pretty much made up, right? It looks better. I like the cell phone or media storage storage solutions a little bit better, and it's just me continuing sticking with something that I've just ingrained into so many people for so long that I just love the Street Glide more. And now here's where I changed my mind. And this first one is kind of unique to me or unique to content creators. I ride with a GoPro a lot. On any long trip that I go on, I'm more than likely to be filming. So something I noticed is that drawer that comes on the Street Glide, it will not fit a GoPro camera. However, on the Road Glide, it does fit a GoPro camera. On either the left or the right hand side storage compartment of the Road Glide, it fits a full GoPro with a handle in there. And so I was like, okay, that's definitely one for the Road Glide, cool. And although this is something that's not going to really pertain to most riders, for me, it's kind of a big thing. Number 2 for me, the bar situation. And I talked about this quite a bit in my Road Glide review video. Changing bars on a Road Glide just gives you a lot more latitude in what you can do exactly on the bike. You are less constrained in your available options when choosing bars for a Road Glide as opposed to a Street Glide. And it's kind of the same as it has been in previous years. You've always had more options on the Road Glide, although this year it's even more magnified just because the Road Glide just made it that much easier because you no longer have to relocate gauges on the Road Glide because all the gauges are up in the infotainment now. But on the Street Glide, because the fairing is so close to you, the Street Glide is basically directly over where the bars mount up. And so you have to have a very specific bend on the bars to make them work for the Batwing fairing. Either that or you have to put in these big, large pullback plates, and you're for sure going to block the infotainment at that point, which in the past has been okay because you still had your gauges. But now that the gauges and everything is all in the infotainment, if you're blocking or inhibiting your view of the infotainment system now, it's even more detrimental because literally all your information on your bike is up there. And so that just makes changing bars very limiting on a Street Glide. And because of my height at 6'6", I have to change my bars. And on the Road Glide I definitely want to get like a T-bar style setup. And something like that just isn't really even available on these new 24s yet. I'm sure there will be an aftermarket company that makes a T-bar setup for a Batwing fairing model, but I haven't personally seen one that doesn't severely block the screen. And so that chalks up another one for the Road Glide. So we're 3 for the Street Glide and 2 for the Road Glide at this point. And guys, here's the final straw that broke the camel's back that just kind of solidified my decision for the Road Glide. In the 24 model year, Harley-Davidson announced the CVO Road Glide ST. They do not have a CVO Street Glide ST. And when I first saw the CVO Road Glide ST, I instantly fell in love. I actually had the opportunity to contribute in the concept stages of the development of this bike. And so having played a tiny part in this bike coming to market, that made me feel even more connected to the CVO Road Glide ST. And so that factor right there pretty much sealed the deal for me. If they came out with a CVO Street Glide ST, I think my decision would be very hard at that point. I may have just stuck with the Street Glide, but because they didn't, my decision is very clear. And with being able to change the bars the way I want and storing my camera, that kind of sealed the deal for me. And I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, okay, Matt, what about the discussion about the wind and the head buffeting and how well the bike cuts through the air and all that stuff? I'll just tell you guys, the wind on these fairings and high speed performance in winds and things like that has never been a factor for me in determining or suggesting one of these bikes over the other to people. And it's funny because most people will tell you that's like their number one reason for going for a Road Glide. Here's what I'll say after riding the Rushmore bikes, thousands, tens of thousands of miles, and riding these new bikes a little bit. When you're going over 100 miles an hour, I feel like maybe the Road Glide is a little bit better at really high speeds like that. The top speed on the regular Street Glide is 105 miles per hour where it's electronically governed, and the top speed on a regular Road Glide is 110 miles an hour where it's electronically governed. I'm told that's because the Street Glide front end's a little bit lighter, and so when you're really starting to go at high speeds down the freeway, the Road Glide's able to stay planted a little bit better. I think the CVO Street Glide and CVO Road Glide are the same, 105 and 110 miles an hour, but the CVO Road Glide ST has a top speed of 120 miles an hour where it's electronically governed. Of course, all these governors can be taken off if you go to an aftermarket tuner and tune your bike, then the sky's the limit. But Harley-Davidson governs their top speed, much like most car manufacturers do, just for safety reasons. So now that we've got the high-speed wind topic out of the way, I'll just talk real quick on my opinion on the headwind from these two bikes and how they handle wind at 65 miles an hour plus. I personally think both of these new fairings do an excellent job at keeping the wind off of your head and away from your body. They've both got wind deflectors. The Street Glide's wind deflectors on the top of the forks, which make a big difference, and then the Road Glide has wind deflectors on the side of the fairing. At the end of the day, guys, it's really close. It's so close that the wind deflection performance is kind of a non-factor for me because they're so similar. I think at the end of the day, if you really favor not having any headwind and really reducing the amount of wind that's hitting you on your body and your head, then you're going to want to go to a taller windshield on either one of these bikes. And a lot of that is going to be determined by how tall you are, of course. So a person that's 6 foot plus is probably going to want to go to a taller windshield, where someone who's maybe 5'9" or so may not feel the need to swap out from that chopped smoked windshield that comes stock from the factory. But so much testing was put in by the engineers when they developed these new fairings, all the computational fluid dynamics testing and all that stuff that was put into these new fairings. They did their due diligence, and in riding these bikes, I never once felt like uneven fluttering or buffeting on either one of these bikes. On the stock windshield setup, I had a constant stream of wind hitting me in the face just because, once again, the windshields aren't tall enough for me. If I had to really nitpick, I would say, just like last year, the Street Glide is a little bit better at deflecting headwinds than the Road Glide is, just because the Street Glide fairing is closer to you. But the Road Glide fairing, because it's a little bit wider and bigger on the sides, it's a little bit better at deflecting body winds than the Batwing fairing is. Although now a lot of the body wind that you would get on the Batwing fairing bike is deflected with those fork mounted deflectors on the side. And so it's very close. At the end of the day, guys, I always tell people, get the one that you like the look of. If the bars and storage are a factor like they were for me, for you, then yeah, take that into consideration. For a long time on the Rushmore fairing, there was LED lights that came stock on the Road Glide, and there were still dual halogen bulbs in the Street Glide. And so I used to say, okay, well, the lighting is a little bit better on the Road Glide. Now they're both LED. Honestly, maybe the Road Glide illuminates the road a little bit bigger, but I think that's pretty close too. I haven't really tested the lighting on these new bikes yet. I haven't ridden them at night very much at all. So maybe that's something that I need to cover in a future video as to which one has the better lighting from the factory. But that's it, guys. I appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for future videos on my new CVO Road Glide ST. I haven't gotten one yet. I hope to get one probably in the next 6 or 7 months or so. We'll see. But I'm going to be doing some stuff to it as well. So I'm going to be doing kind of a series, a build series on the bike. So stay tuned for that. Super excited to be swapping out my 18 Rushmore bike for a new 24 model year CVO Road Glide ST. And although it does kind of pain me to be leaving the Street Glide clan, I'm happy to be checking out the Road Glide clan, and who knows how long it'll last. You know, maybe I'll be back to the Street Glide again one day. We'll see. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Later.